Is Doc Rivers the best coach in NBA history? No. Is Doc Rivers the best coach in the NBA currently?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Of course not. Is Doc Rivers the best coach in the NBA at getting the premier jobs despite not winning a title in 16 years and having some of the most embarrassing playoff losses in NBA history? Absolutely. Despite Doc's shortcomings, he has found a way to receive the best roles within the NBA, receiving almost $170 million in wages in that time. So I've been in the lab, doing the research, crunching the numbers to understand the man, the myth, the legend that is Doc Rivers. And I can only come to one conclusion. The man's a genius. And by the end of this video, I want you to think the same thing as well, because I've provided you a framework with how we're going to emulate something that you can bring to your day-to-day job. With this framework, you'll be able to remain mediocre, get compensated handsomely, and get credit where you absolutely do not deserve it, just like Doc. Now let's get into it. Now I'm not here to create another video on why Doc Rivers is so bad at his job. There are plenty of those on YouTube already. I am here to learn from him, translate his skills to make sure that you can bring it to your everyday life. But before that, we need to look back at the man's history to understand how to make this work for you and understand how he's been able to keep up this charade for so long. Doc has won over 1,000 NBA games in the regular season, and he's also won over 100 as a coach within the playoffs. Obviously, he won his title back in 2008 with the big three of Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce with the Celtics, and biggest feat was being named the coach of the Eastern Conference after only 3 games with the Milwaukee Bucks. And we all agree that that was the best All-Star game ever. But behind all those wins, he has so many fails, and we need to analyze those, and to do that, we need to go into the studio. Thanks for that, Lloyd. Now let's have a look at some of the numbers and metrics and how Doc has managed to receive almost $165 million in salary since 2008. But let's have a look at his time at Boston. And this was his most accomplished time as a coach. This is where he won the title in 2008 with the Big Three. He lost the finals to the LA Lakers, and he also made the conference finals in 2012. He was at Boston from 2004 to 2011, receiving an extension that time to the tune of $35 million. As you can see over here, he started off with $17 million and he managed to triple his net worth to $55 million in that time. However, Doc did not complete his extension with the Boston Celtics and was actually traded to the LA Clippers, where he ended up managing Lob City, including Chris Paul,
Tall sends it high off glass.
Blake Griffin,
Around the Griffin screen, pick, roll, slam dunk.
and DeAndre Jordan.
The lob, again.
Due to injuries and bad luck, unfortunately didn't work out for them. However, later in his career at the Clippers, he ended up also coaching Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who just won the title with the Raptors. Despite having some of the best teams in the league, the furthest that Doc went was the semi-conference finals, losing out there on 3 separate occasions. In his time at the Clippers, Doc ends up cashing in the bag, earning himself $55 million, doubling his net worth at the time. After that doesn't work out, Doc ends up joining the Philadelphia 76ers, where he has his most tumultuous time as an NBA coach. He ends up working with some of the best players in the NBA, including Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and eventually James Harden. Now, despite his fantastic regular season record, he ends up doing terribly in the playoffs, losing out at the semi-conference finals on 3 separate occasions. During his time there, he ends up earning himself $24 million and is still owed another $16 million to complete that contract. So here we are today. Doc Rivers now joins the Milwaukee Bucks, working with 2 of the best players in the NBA, with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. He also received himself a 3.5-year contract worth $40 million. Now, if we look at all the data and all of the numbers here, we can now see that Doc started off with $17 million in 2008, and by the end of 2027, he will be receiving just shy of $170 million. He has not won a title since, but he still gets paid. Back to you, Lloyd. So we've seen his tenure, we've seen who he's coached, and now we need to overlay his salary with his biggest losses. Now looking at the graph here, when he was at the Celtics, he lost 3-2 to the LA Lakers in the finals. He did lose 3-2 again with the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, And then it starts to get real bad come 2015. That's where he lost to the Rockets when he was up in that 3-1 lead. And then he did the same thing with the Clippers again in 2020 when he lost to Denver in the bubble. He moves on to the 76ers. He loses in 2021 to the Hawks, where he blew a 3-2 lead, and then he blew another 3-2 lead again in 2023 when he lost to the Celtics. And I think this tweet I found really highlights just how bad Doc is in these playoff situations. He is known for blowing his 3-1 leads. He's got 4 other 3-2 lead losses, 1 2-0 lead, and has lost Game 7 at home 4 times, 5 viewing count. He is now 6-10 in Game 7s. And this is to me where Doc Rivers truly shines. His ability to take a loss and make an excuse for it. So let's overlay this graph with a few more advanced metrics. Let's focus on his biggest excuses that align with his major losses. And let's get Doc to have a chat about these ones and see why all his teams lost.
My Orlando team was the 8th seed. No one gives me credit for getting up against the Pistons who won the title. That was an 8th seed.
So here we have Doc talking about a 3-1 loss from over 20 years ago. But now let's get back into 2015 and let's have him talk about how his Clippers ended up losing to the Rockets, because that one maybe Doc will take some responsibility for.
The Clipper team that we lost 3-1. Chris Paul didn't play in the first 2 games and was playing on one leg. And we didn't have home court.
So that one was due to injuries, things happen. CP3 gets injured at the time. That's a fair enough. So what about the Clippers' loss in Denver in the bubble? Surely Doc has to take responsibility. That's arguably his biggest loss as a coach. Surely he's taking responsibility for this one.
And then the last one, to me, is the one we blew. That's the one I said, we blew that.
He made the mistake on this one. This one is on Doc and they blew it. And that's on him.
And that was in the bubble. And anything could happen in the bubble.
Alright, apparently not. Apparently it's the bubble's fault. It's not like every other team also had to play in the bubble. That's not on Doc. Doc does also a fantastic job of blaming the players after he's moved on from the team. Here's an article where he talks about how Joel Embiid didn't get the ball enough, and that's how they ended up losing to the Celtics in games 6 and 7. And here we also have an article about how James Harden was a difficult person to coach, just from the way he played. But again, it's not Doc's fault, it's always someone else's fault. Despite all of that, Doc Rivers' best performance at shifting the blame from him to a player has to go when the 76ers ended up losing to the Hawks and he put it on Ben Simmons in this unreal interview.
Doc, you think Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become?
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now. So I don't know the answer to that.
Now, we all know how much Ben Simmons fucked up in that game against the elite defender of Trae Young on that dunk. But for a coach to blame his players after a Game 7 loss like that is absolutely wild to me. It shows how Doc continues to get his roles by pushing the responsibility to someone else. And he has done a fantastic job of that. So now we've looked at all things Doc and understand how he has managed to get all of these positions. I will now show you how to replicate this using the patented Doc system. First one is D, defy all expectations. You only need to do this once in your life, and for Doc Rivers, it was winning the title of the Celtics in 2008. All you need to do is have one big sale in your company, one big hit, or you can have one piece of content that goes viral. But the important thing is that you only need to do it once. This is the starting point of what you need to do, and it is the most difficult of the Doc system, but it is only temporary. And you're thinking, well, this is just too difficult for me. Think about how much money Doc Rivers has made and how you can't even afford a subscription to your favorite OF content creator. Oh, only provide excuses. Now, this is where Doc truly shines. And there's a common misconception that when you make a mistake, you learn from it and you grow as an individual. And I'm here to tell you that is completely wrong. What you need to do is blame everyone or everything and make sure you keep doing what you're doing. Think about it this way. Time equals money. If you spend all that time thinking about how you can grow and be a better person, that is extra time that you could be spending on making more money. It is imperative that you shut down that stupid part of your brain that makes you think, I should learn from this situation. What you need to be doing is focusing on blaming other people or other things. All that time spending focusing on yourself will lead to an adverse effect in how much you can earn. C, charm the right people. Here's the secret. Doc doesn't give a fuck about what you think about him, what the NBA public thinks about him. or what I think about him. Doc needs to make sure that he has the right people on his side. That includes the NBA players and the NBA owners. Doc is widely considered across the NBA as a player's coach, basically allowing players to dictate their own play, despite this leading to fruitless results. Similar to Doc, you need to find a way to kiss ass and speak to the right employers and the right people. Make sure you're networking and focusing on those people. Do not waste your time with anyone beneath you or underlings. You need to get on the right side of the people who are going to affect your bank account the quickest. So there's been a lot of slander about Doc Rivers and his time as an NBA coach. But in reality, we all know a Doc. Someone who has achieved great heights despite being completely inept at doing their role. You always think, how did they get there in the first place? So Doc shouldn't be vilified, he should be celebrated. No matter how inept you are, regardless of your shortcomings, you don't need things like talent, skill, passion, hard work, or any of those inane things. All you need is the Doc framework.